Okay, so this is a beer kit. This is Mr. Hector Vargas. It's going to be a stout beer, about 7 to 9% alcohol, which is high in alcohol for beer. It comes with 14 pounds of malt. Didn't come with the yeast though. So tomorrow morning I'm going to brew up another beer. This is going to call Jason Briat's Honey Stout. Now what we're going to do with this Honey Stout, as you can see, we've got several types of malt. A German malt, a North American malt, an American malt, and an English roasted barley. Now you see the English roasted barley is a different color than the malts. What it is, they've cooked these grains and they've cooked it to a level that it will turn the beer kind of a chocolatey color. So we'll put these grains into the brew kettle. See, there's a pot right in here, and I've got a lobster cooker. So I'll put those into there and steep them till they hit 170 degrees. Then I'll pull those out. It should take about a half an hour. Add 6 gallons of water in there. And then I'll put these sugars in. You can see this one has 6 pounds of malt, and it has 4 ounces of maltodextrin. It's a malt-derived sugar, and DME, dried malt extract, about a half a pound of that. And then toward the end of the boil, I'm going to put in this wildflower honey. Now you've heard of beer and the bitter beer face. Well, the bitter beer face comes from bittering hops. You've got all this sugar here that you're putting into the mixture, and the hops just makes it so it's not as sweet a mixture. What you'll do is after you boil this, you'll put the yeast into this sugary mixture. The yeast eats the sugar, and as a waste byproduct, it creates alcohol. So that's all there is to know about it. Oh, and there's a Werfurlock tablet here. This just helps to clarify the beer at the very end. Makes it does all the solids stick together. So when you bottle it, it doesn't have a whole lot of solids in it. So I'm looking forward to brewing this tomorrow morning. I'll show you as I do this brew what the process is. So there we have all the grains. I also added a couple oats to this as well. The oats will give it kind of a mouthfeel. You know when oatmeal, kind of the water from oatmeal becomes milky white? That's what that's going to do. I'm going to wait for this to get up to 170 degrees. It should do it within a half an hour. It's on a turkey baster boiler thing, hooked up to... Yeah, it looks ghetto out here, but... Okay, it's been about a half an hour, and you see the temperature is almost at 170. You're asking what happens if it goes over 170? Well, then you get tannins in the beer. I've never let it get tannins in the beer. But anyway, that's what the color of this beer is going to be, and the flavor. If I wanted to sample a 170 degree beer, I could do that. So now what I need to do is I need to bring it up to boiling point and boil off about a gallon of water and put the sugars in. Now these sugars, this is the DME malt. So it tastes, not only does it look like molasses, it tastes like molasses. And you try and get as much out of this packet as you possibly can. And I've come upon a nice little way of getting quite a bit of it out. What I'll do is I'll take this, take a little from the bottom, and fill up the pouch. And I'll do this time and time again until the water that comes out of here is just kind of the color of the beer. Now I won't show that to you guys. Yeah, as you can imagine, you need to keep this stirred until it boils up. You don't want the sugars on the bottom of the kettle to caramelize. So remember that maltodextrin? Adding that. Remember the DME? They're going to add that too. So this is just sugars, more food for the yeast. They just have different flavors. Now, not all beers will have the very seldom do I get this maltodextrin in there. And usually I'll put the DME in there just to up the alcohol percentage. More food for the yeast, more waste byproduct it produces. Okay, so in all this beer making process, why you heat the beer is to make sure it's sterile. So when the yeast gets in there, there's no other brands of yeast. There are yeast all over the place. So the Star San is another product that you use. When you transfer it into this carbile, or let's just call it the fermenter, you have to make sure that is clean as well. However, you can't expose it to the heat. You can the beer in the kettle. So this is what you do. You put the Star San in, add some water in it, shake it up, and then you also put this over your hands. Okay, you can see that the temperature has gotten up to boiling now. There's a little bit of boil going on there. It'll get more intense as time goes on, but we're going to boil off about a gallon of water. Since the boil has started, it's time to put the hops in. So I'm going to take these hops out of this little bag and put them into this grain sack and then put them into the boil. That's for the bitter beer flavor. Alright, it's about a half an hour into the boil. Time to add the honey for this recipe. There we go. So I need to stir it up a little so it doesn't congeal on the bottom. So it's been boiling about an hour now, very close to the end of the boil. I put this chiller in here. It's just copper tubes. What it is, you have to cool the brew down before you put it in that, but down to what, it's like 90 degrees at least before you put it into the carb boil. And also you need to put the Refurlock tablet in. Remember, that keeps the solids together. Then also there's some more hops that you're going to put in. Now these are just for the aroma type hops. So I'll let it boil another minute, and then I'll turn the water onto the cooler and cool it down. So after the mixture has cooled down enough, you transfer it into this carboil. It's a 6-gallon container. It's got a thermometer on the side so you can check the temperature of it. The yeast should keep the cap between 64 and 74 degrees. It just depends, different yeasts need different amounts. If you're talking a lager, I've actually put one into my wife's wine refrigerator before and fermented that way until she told me, okay, you've had it for long enough. It was only a couple months, but so at any rate, I'll shut this off for now. Okay, I found an issue. Once you put the yeast in, it needs a little bit of headspace because it's going to produce a lot of carbon dioxide. So there's not enough headspace in there, and I'll have what's called a boil over, where you get this wort all over the ground. So what I'm doing is I'm transferring about 3/4 of a gallon to this 1-gallon container. Now I got the 1-gallon container at, what was it, Sprouts, was it? It was an applesauce container. Perfect for doing small brews. So and I'll have a cork on each one of these and airlock. We'll get into that later.